subject is Jason Brewer will discuss the election information first, and then we'll do the budget afterwards.
Mayor, ma'am,
Yes.
this meeting has been conducted in compliance with Governor Bill Lee's executive orders in light of the coronavirus.
Somewhat awkward standing with my back to you, Mayor Wells, members of the board. Before I begin my presentation on the matter that I'm here, I would like to make reference to the yellow rose that I have on my lapel. In Tennessee, we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Tennessee played a critical role in the adoption of that amendment, and that amendment gave women the right to vote, as you know. It was a long, hot summer in 1920. The first vote that was cast in the General Assembly in the state of Tennessee was tied 48 to 48. So there were things that were contentious back then, just as they are today. The second vote was tied 48 to 48, and the reason for the rose is it was known as the War of the Roses. And the people that were in favor of the amendment wore a yellow rose. Those that were opposed wore a red rose. A gentleman by the name of Harry T. Byrne from McMinn County, Tennessee, or as I like to say, a hillbilly from East Tennessee, cast the deciding vote. Now, Tennessee was the last state to consider the issue, and if Tennessee did not ratify the amendment, it would not have passed, and the course of history would have been changed for many years to come, and we would probably be still feeling the effects of that today. But it's noteworthy to note that, to mention the fact that somebody from East Tennessee, and another noteworthy thing about Mr. Byrne is he was 22 years of age at the time, and single-handedly changed the course of history. So if someone like Harry T. Byrne can do that, then so can all we if we put our mind to it. The matter at hand, the reason I'm here before you tonight is to discuss with you the option of changing your municipal election date, and you have in front of you a memorandum that I've issued to kind of go along with the information I'm going to share with you tonight. So in 2018, Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton and State Senator Todd Gardenhauer introduced a legislation that would require municipalities in the state of Tennessee to move their election date to a normally scheduled August or November general election. In 2018, the General Assembly requested that TASER, or Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations, which is comprised of state legislators, local elected officials on the county and municipal level, as well as various other individuals that study things from time to time on behalf of the General Assembly. And they submitted their report in September of 2019 of last year. The TASER report recommended that the municipalities continue to have the option when their election date is held, not require them to move their election date to August or November. Public Chapter 1008 was adopted in 2010, and it authorized municipalities to change their election date to a regularly scheduled August or November general election by ordinance. Prior to that, in order to change a municipal election date, it required a private act. That's a very lengthy process that's involved with the local municipality as well as the General Assembly, the governor, and then back to the local legislative body of the municipality. The law permits, if you make the change pursuant to Public Chapter 1008, to change back one time. So if you decide you don't like it, it doesn't work for you, or a future board of mayor and alderman decides that they would prefer to go back to a standalone municipal election, they can do that. The only elections that are held in odd numbered years in Sullivan County are municipal elections. Historically, that's been Bluff City, Bristol, and Kingsport municipal elections. You can see a reference to the elections that are held in even numbered years. So in March, which is this year, we had a presidential primary and a county primary. In the non-presidential cycles, so in 2022 and 2018, we have the county primary in May. And then in August, we will always have in an even numbered year the county general election and the state primary, and then in November, the state and federal general election. And so your options are to move your election date from a standalone election as it is now in the odd year. Your next election is scheduled to come up May the 18th, 2021, to August or November of an even year. Tennessee Constitution prohibits shortening a term of office of an elected official. So the public chapter granted the authority to the municipalities upon the adoption of an ordinance to extend the term of any elected official by 2 years, up to 2 years. So I know from conversations that I've held with other local municipalities, some of the concern is that elected officials may be looking out for their own self-interest by extending their elected term. And I would submit to you that's not your decision. That's the only option that's available under the circumstances of the Tennessee constitutional provision and the act that was adopted by the Tennessee General Assembly. There's no other way around it. The real motivations behind this, I'll speak to in a minute. So if you changed your election date from May 18th, 2021, the end result of that would be that Mayor Wells, Alderman Bowling, and Alderman Harrington, their term would not expire until the certification date of either the August 4th or the November 8th, 2022 election. It is set to expire on the certification date of May 2021 election. And then Alderman Broyles, Alderman Keith, and Alderman Ward, their terms, your terms, are set to expire on May 2023 certification date, and that would not occur until August 1st or November 5th, 2024 elections, depending on which one you chose, August or November. On the back of the page of the handout that I provided you, you'll note at the top that Tasser, the report, noted that a nationwide trend is occurring to consolidate municipal elections with a regularly scheduled election in the state, in our case in Tennessee, August or November. At least 21 of Tennessee's municipalities have moved their election date from a standalone election date to an August or November election. 281, or 81% of the 345 municipalities in Tennessee hold their elections with a regularly scheduled even year August or November election. Two main reasons for a municipality to move your election date or consolidate it with a regularly scheduled election is to save money and improve voter participation. National studies show that when municipal elections are held with other elections, the cost per voter decreases and the voter turnout increases, and in some cases it actually doubles. The statewide average for turnout in Tennessee for a November election is 54 to 62%, and that's pretty much in line with what we see here in Sullivan County. And in August, it's 14 to 32%. So obviously you can see from that data that your turnout increase is the greatest in November over an August election. Obviously each election is unique, and elections will offer different turnouts for different reasons. 26 states hold all their municipal elections on the same day as the November even year election. 21 states hold their municipal elections on the same day, but other than the November general election. So they require by mandate from the state that the elections be held on a given date each year in all municipalities. 23 states, including Tennessee, have a variety of election dates, and in Tennessee we grant municipalities the option of choosing their election date by city charter, and that's true of all municipalities. Some of the concerns regarding changing the election date include a long ballot, and you'll see in just a few minutes that it's not really an issue in November. It can be in August, and so if you're looking at a long ballot as being one of the concerns, a November option will alleviate that concern. That's what a city, your sister city in Bristol, chose. One of the reasons why they chose November as their date was because of the shorter ballot. Voter fatigue is another concern. Voters perceive that there are too many elections. They get confused or they forget. especially in odd years when there's nothing else going on. City mayor versus county mayor. A lot of voters don't understand the difference. They feel like they're going back and forth to the polls all the time, and when it's always a time to vote. When do I ever stop voting? And so national studies indicate that 70% of voters prefer fewer elections or consolidated elections. Partisan races with nonpartisan races is a concern that is addressed. And I would submit to you that is already occurring in August elections in Sullivan County now. We have an election this August coming up where there will be the nonpartisan offices of constable and school board, along with partisan offices in the county. Johnson City moved their election date several years ago, and I haven't received any reports of that being a major issue or concern in Johnson City. They moved to November as well. Ballot drop-off is a concern, and what that means is a voter that comes in to vote will not vote on those down ticket races. They will skip. They'll only get the top races. But there's actually been studies done that down ballot voters, the down ballot races increase anywhere from 29 to 35%. And overall participation rises because you've got voters out there that only vote in a city election. And if the city election is held with another election, they're going to vote in both, and vice versa. So you can look at it two ways. One, your participation of the citizens of Bluff City in a city municipal race increases, but also the voice of the same citizens of Bluff City is also being felt and heard louder in those other races because they're showing up and voting in those as well. And a historical analysis of Bluff City voter participation indicates that voter turnout would increase in August by 5 to 7%. It's not a lot. One of the things I can say that is unique, and it's a good thing about Bluff City, is your voter participation outranks any other city in Sullivan County and the region. You traditionally vote in the high 20s to 30, low 30% range in your city elections. And I've seen some of the elections held in other municipalities in the region drop as low as 4%. So you do have that going for you. But if you were to move it to November, your turnout would increase 33 to 44%. And I base that on actual numbers of Bluff City voters that are residents of the city of Bluff City, and comparing that with August and November elections as well as your own standalone municipal elections. The current cost of a standalone election has ranged historically between $3,500 and $4,300. As a result of Bristol moving their election, some of the shared mutual cost associated with that has disappeared, and so unfortunately for you guys, your estimated increase in cost, you're going to go from $3,500 to $4,300 to $7,800 to $11,500. And I've based that on a study of what historically the costs have been. I looked at the most recent election of 2019 and looked at what was shared between Bristol and Bluff City, because you guys are both on the upper end of Sullivan County, Kingsport's on the lower end of the county, and some of those shared costs will not occur. And if you move, the good news is, if you move your election date, your cost will be less than $1,000. There might be, there's a chance that you'll pay zero. The only reason I've put the $1,000 amount in there is if there is a legal notice that's required to be ran in a newspaper that I can't run with another legal notice that's being scheduled to run for that county election, or that August election, or that November election. That would really be the only cost, because the poll workers are already here, polling sites, the newspaper notices, majority of them, all those things are already being covered in the fact that the election's being held in August or November. State law requires that early voting be held from the 20th day through the 5th day for every election, including municipalities. As a result of the move in Bristol, you're no longer sharing an early voting site on the upper end. So Bluff City would, if you remain as you are with the standalone odd year May election, you will be responsible for the full cost. And that's where the biggest part of the increase comes from, is the labor associated with running early voting over that number of days. It's about 14 days of early voting, and we cannot change that. You can't change it, I can't change it, there's no way around it. And so we would likely hold early voting here in Bluff City somewhere, either at City Hall for those 14 days or some other location that we would work together to choose. But if you move to August or November, we continue the same thing you're used to, your voters are used to, and again, you're not paying anything for that. I've given a little bit of data for you. You can look at the turnout for Bluff City voters in your standalone elections of May 19 and May 17. You can also see the November and August 18 and November, August 16. And that's just for your city and for the residents of your city in past elections that have been held. There's a bar graph that goes with that. You can also see the costs broken down. And then the very last thing that I've included is a reference to the ballot for August and November of 2022 and 2024. That's subject to change in the form of an addition as a result of a vacancy that may occur, but those are the minimums. And so you can see, in terms of the long ballot, and I referenced this earlier in my comments, that if you move to August, there's a long ballot there. If you move to November, there's not. So, biggest bang for your buck, to put it in layman's terms, is to go to a November 2022 election. And just to be blunt, to stay with what you've got now, and I understand there's political considerations that have to be given, you'll be paying more for less. That's really the bottom line, the end result. You'll be paying more for the election and have less turnout than you would if you moved. Does anybody have any questions? Surely you do. Okay.
When do we have to vote on this or decide on this?
We would need a decision from Bluff City, ideally by October.
Oh, okay.
We wouldn't want to delay, and I can give you a firm, hard date, statutorily defined in terms of when we start issuing petitions for the election, but the thing that we would want to do, and I'm sure you would as well, is to let the voters know well ahead of time. And, you know, one of the things about that I've learned through this process and serving as administrator, and I'm sure each of you have as well in your capacities as members of the BMA here in Bluff City, a lot of times it's not so much what a voter thinks as how much they know about what they think about, or their opinion, how they've cast their opinion. Once they fully get educated. So for example, if you were to walk up to a voter and ask them, would you be in favor of moving the election date to November? The answer might be no. But if you say, if we move it to November, our cost goes to virtually nothing and our turnout increases, and we can spend that money on something else that's needed in the city, the answer probably will go to yes. So sometimes it's based on what they know and the information they have at the time they're formulating their opinion. Mayor Wells?
Yes.
Any questions?
No.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just want to thank you, Jason.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the next thing that's on the agenda is the budget discussion. And,
Mayor, we can't hear you back here.
oh, you can't hear me? Hey. Go to the budget discussion. Sharon.
Okay. Guess all of you had a chance to read over the budget.
Yes.
The first thing I wanted to point out on our current year that we're just finishing up, we had some unexpected decreases. And so I put the sheet that I left there on the table for you was the decrease. So we would amend that budget. That's what we need to have next week when we do try to get a meeting so that we can vote on the amendments, budget amendments for this current year, which we usually do back in May, 1st of May anyway. But since we weren't having meetings, we didn't get to do that. But some major one, I mean, those on the revenue was the income tax that we had been getting for, well, since I know 2015 was phased out, so this year we did not get it, and we did have it in the budget. Didn't know that until we didn't get it, and I called to see why, the state of Tennessee. So that was the $15,000 that we have to take back out of our budget. And then the Sullivan County, instead of giving $10,000, they only gave us $5,000 last year, of this current year that we're finishing up. And then on the finance that was put in there for the police cruiser. And instead of borrowing money, which would have been the other finance, we chose to pay for it out of our cash money and not borrowing money for it. So we have to reduce those in our budget for the ending for June 30th, 2020. So that takes it took our budget, our original budget back down to $1,605,730. So that's what we want to compare to how much we're losing this year. So on the delinquent taxes, and these are, we're just trying to guess because we don't know since March of this year, and then it's going to throw us into getting the property taxes in at the beginning of July the 1st, which will be delinquent, after July 1st, because we didn't charge any delinquent interest or payments on delinquent taxes. I estimated 16,000 short on the local sales tax. That's basically a 6% decrease. A 10,000 on the state sales tax. And then the big one, which we all know, this will be the first year that we have not had the cameras full year. This past year we had it for 6
What
months.
was that this year, and had what?
The cameras, the revenue coming in for the cameras. This is the first year, so that's taken a good $250,000 out of our budget. Our revenue coming in.
But we don't subtract it from what you have proposed.
No, I'm just showing you how we got down to 1,321,000.
Oh, okay. I thought
That's just
thought we
showing the
reduced that.
decrease, yes. Where the budget is that I did for 6/30/21. Because
But,
that's,
excuse me, Sharon, with, the officers giving tickets and court costs and all that, I mean, that's, yeah, something, yeah.
yeah, that's what I did on the city court fines. If you'll notice there, it's down towards the bottom, 35,110. I put in 192,000 for our budget on that. That's averaging 16,000 a month, which hopefully that's low, and the chief thinks that they can do more than that. But that's up like our last audit of 19. See, we only had 159,000. So I added 2, and I'm putting in 192 for this year's budget.
But with us reducing, not having the cameras, not getting that money, we're also not paying for the cameras.
Right. That's what I was gonna
So
tell
what
you.
was, so what would be the actual decline would be half that?
This year, yes, it would probably be where we don't have, when we get over the police department there, where it's, then I've taken it out there.
Okay.
And I was gonna tell you, that nets out to somewhere around $100,000 where, this year, because we
Okay.
don't have the income, we don't have the expense, but we're still losing around 125,000 revenue after you take off, when you consider we don't have to pay the expense.
And then what is the ticket, chief, $168
A regular speeding ticket is $188.50.
versus a $50 ticket?
Correct.
So, I mean,
Mhm.
we should be.
Yeah, he feels like he can, yeah, he feel
Plus
like that they
drugs.
can,
Exactly. And have we added another court date and everything yet? Or have we started it back up yet? Court,
no, they haven't started court back up. See, that dropped us down the end of this
Right.
physical year. We're down because of that.
but we were talking about adding the second court date too and everything, have we?
What we did, and the mayor and I got with the judge and we tried to work it out, we instead of adding another date, we added 2 court times in one day. There's a court time in the morning at 9 a.m. or 9:30, then there's one at 1:30.
Good, good.
So,
So basically, more bang for your buck anyway, like.
yes, one day, less time for the officers have to come in to pay them for being here, knock it out in one day.
Right. Good.
So as far as the breakdowns and cameras, we're not gonna miss them then.
Oh, you're gonna miss them. Until, especially this year. This year's gonna be,
The hard year.
give us the information, because we don't know yet.
Gotta see where the criminals
Yeah.
fall.
Well, with the
If-
cameras, you only got like a percentage anyway, didn't you? Because they had to send so much to the company. But now
Yes,
you get the full buck,
You
right?
get the 188.
Yeah.
But then you also have to look at the fact that that camera's taken constantly. Constantly. Or even, you know, you have to, even though that's 188, you still got a whole lot more tickets that can be flashed that quick. Even if you've got the officer out there, if he's tied up and 5 or 6 cars go by or whatever, you know what kind of traffic's out here. But hopefully, you know, they're gonna be able,
Make it up.
yeah. But this year's gonna be critical so that we will have some statistics, you know, what's really gonna be. And
How many tickets average a month we've been having, chief?
It's been kind of hard to judge over the last 2 months, but prior to that, we were going well over 100. And based on the traffic flow, based on what I see, my experience of being here, I'm confident that we can well exceed and do what she's put in there.
Because I thought at the meeting that we had, when we were discussing it, we felt pretty confident
Yeah,
about
because
this.
last year, we went probably, Mayor, about 4 or 5 months, and we wasn't at full staff at times, and we still were able to exceed even during those hard times we went through. With the crew we have now, and with the cameras gone, we still have more speeders probably than when they were there, because they slowed down.
Yep.
So at full staff and with the amount of speeders we have out there enforced and pretty heavy, we're gonna be issuing some citations. Now,
So how much you get a ticket right now for off the camera? How much you average off the ticket?
off
the camera?
the camera ticket,
Yeah,
what the regular, it was $50, but now our part of it, I'm not for sure exactly.
that's what I'm saying, what is our part of it?
it was 50%.
It's like $25.
So we, $25, so we're doing a lot better now.
Yeah.
So
Not a couple
basically,
citations will take care of that though,
so basically,
right?
Yeah.
yeah, you have proposed a budget to us that's extremely lean. Extremely lean. And,
Extremely
you
wide.
know, in looking at this, it may be a whole lot more optimistic. I know out in the private business world, like some of us are, we're having very lean years at this point. And as we look at our budget, you know, my company's down 48% right now
Right.
because of COVID. You know, it hurts my heart to see some of these cuts. So
Yeah.
I sat today and looked at this for about an hour and really thought
I've
about,
looked at a lot longer.
you know, really thought about, well, goodness, you know, I'd really like to see our fire department and rescue squads be better supported. How can we find the money? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it looks like to me, you've taken the best approach, and that is that you're going lean to the bone. And then
high.
hopefully.
I'd
you know,
rather do low and come out better than go high and you don't meet your,
Right. And, you know, we always have the option as a board, if we decide something is so important or a project must be done, to come back and look at our general fund, because you've done such a good job, you and the mayor, of making sure that we manage that general fund well. And I know that we have a lot of projects that we really want to try to do in-house, especially on the water and sewer side, and that will prevent us from borrowing money and doing what we can do, because we just don't know what the year's going to bring.
That's for sure.
I do need to bring your attention though, I made an error on the wholesale beer tax. I made an error there, it was supposed to be 76 instead of 96. So that's going to reduce our revenue. But on the delinquent taxes, I don't think it'll really go down. It's just right up above there, you see that? I don't think it'll go down to the 45. I will put, if it's, you all feel it, the 55,000, the 10,000 back, so that really netted out 10,000. So when we do that, we're still about $9,500 short.
So
This
can
is on the general fund.
So if we take ending available funds and we subtract beginning available funds, that tells us where we're at
Yes.
for the year. Okay.
Or where we'd like to be,
Yeah, that's a,
where we would like to be.
so you're really, you've got that, the available funds to spend with what we create for the budget. They look at the 1 year revenue. Even though we have that money and we do have it to spend, just like Jeff was saying, you know, we can pull it out.
But we have to have a balanced budget.
But for the state, they want us to see a balanced budget. That's the money that comes in this year and the money that goes out this year.
But what you just did made us 95.65 short.
What's that, I can hear you, Dave.
Yeah.
I said right now we're 95.65 short.
Right, yes. Have to look at that over again to come up with that. Because we were very, very close, as you've seen, yeah, which isn't.
Are we not getting the T-Dot safety grant for $4,800 this year?
Okay, there's one, okay, let me, I was gonna tell you about that. The 4,800 actually is the 33,410. They used to be 2 grants they received, and the chief can tell you, it was that 5,000, wasn't it, chief?
And they changed some stuff on it to where it was gonna create us a problem. It wasn't just for equipment no more. They were gonna force us to do like an overtime grant, but they wasn't gonna actually pay overtime, and the city was gonna have to pay, so it was a hassle, was it not, Sharon?
Yes. When we
And
tried.
a lot of smaller departments, it did not benefit, and a lot of smaller departments, he quit doing it.
So that's why yes, we'll be getting your answer, your question, we will be getting the 4,800. It's
It's
just
just
down
somewhere.
on a different line.
I see it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have to take this year.
So, if I may, What about the 66,000 in committed stimulus funds?
Okay,
I know we probably haven't received them yet, but.
We won't receive the money until next year.
and I will be putting, excuse me,
But,
didn't mean nobody.
We had set that money aside for the water plant because there is so many things that's going wrong at the water plant. It's stuff that's old that needs to be, used for that. And
Okay.
it's probably, hopefully, that it won't be a lot over that. But we have to have the application in by the first, and First Tennessee Development District is working on the application.
So it's
And
gonna go in the general fund?
It will go in the water sewer revenue,
Okay.
and I don't have it on there, and see, that
Yeah,
will
I didn't see
overset.
it.
No.
No, I didn't get it on there. I didn't realize how much, the amount that we were gonna get, so I was gonna add that to it when we got over there, I was gonna tell you that. And that should offset the 65,000 that will pull us into the black when I put that revenue in.
Right.
What about the driving school? I see we just got 12,000 for that, and I know that, I've been in the meetings, I know Chief said something about 35 to 40 people a month at $100 a head. That's $42,000 to $48,000.
Yeah, that's one area I had looked at increasing, well, after talking with the chief on the driving school, because that's probably low on it. I just
Yeah.
need to get with him and see.
And the 192,000 is, that's if you write 85 tickets a month. That's 192.
It would be that, or
Yeah.
maybe a little bit over,
Yeah.
but it would give us 192, yeah, at 85 citations, at 188.50,
So there's possible you'll have more money there.
possibly.
Could be a possibility.
So right now, these figures aren't really correct or something? Am I missing something?
You don't know what's on.
Nashville is.
You're just kind of
wanting us-
assuming right now.
No, well, you have to assume, but Nashville is wanting us to do low, not high.
Because
That's-
we can amend the budget.
Yeah.
They're saying do it low.
Right.
When you see it coming in, you make the budget amendments. We can make them all through the year, anytime we want to.
One more question, if you wouldn't mind. I noticed that our salaries in highways and streets, line 110, looks like that we're about an employee lower going into this year, because we had estimated $170,000, and we now have estimated in the next year $137,500, which is about an employee. Are we planning on running an employee leaner this next year?
I don't understand the question.
Highways and streets.
Yeah, in highways and streets, in line 110 salaries.
On page 4.
The highway?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the salaries stayed exactly the same, and with the number of people, there's no increases showing for this year. That I redistributed at the request of the audit last year to split up the men in a different way.
Okay.
So
Right, I
that's
understand.
why they're not the same showing on.
You're just coming out of
The
another
total's
line.
the same,
Right.
I'm just switching some men from a department per request of the CPA.
Yeah, I was looking to find the rest of that money, and honestly, I just didn't see it.
Yeah, it's our budget is on salaries is the same as last year. Now, insurance did go up
Mhm.
And I see that overtime went up
and overtime.
3,000.
Yeah,
So the first column is after our accountant got through with this, and that's the hard number. That's the total, that's the
The
final
first
number?
column is exactly, yes.
The
That com-
audited
That comes, that's the
fiscal year?
audited, yes.
Okay. I figured this one. Well, so we got overtime down here under highways and streets for the audited 2019 for $37,000.
Yes, Alan was in,
Is that done to overflows or something?
Alan was in the, highway department, and, he had an extremely amount of overtime. And of course, he's the high-paying supervisor.
Yeah,
That's
so-
why it came up so much like that.
But was most of that due to the overflows or?
Yes.
Okay.
Having to not necessarily it was during the overflows, but it was all the
That could be
call
line
outs.
breaks
Just
and-
the, no, well, when the rains, when they even didn't have an overflow, they
Yes.
still had to be here
Okay.
with the
Like I
trucks
have
and
my
all.
house on Sunday.
Okay, so.
But then, in 2020, we only budgeted 12,000. That would fit, okay.
And what we did, the last part of the year after the auditors, we had switched Alan over to water sewer. But this year, Alan and I, and the mayor discussed it. And we put Alan back into the highway because we have the water plant operator, who is also a high pay. He will be, when we get one, hire one, that he will be more over the water plant. So that way I was able to sort of balance them out again.
Okay, so.
So you're moving employees from one department to the other to balance out
Yeah, try to balance it out instead of
That's
all the
really
high people in water sewer.
That's the difference in the money. It shows in there.
Mhm.
I think you've done good on that request for the charities and stuff. What we've got.
I can't say I like it very
No,
well.
but at the same
I
time.
don't.
We don't like
For
it.
Nobody likes it.
No, but what money we don't have, or do have to balance. But like Sharon said, we can amend it and maybe later on down the line give them more.
And we actually don't have a raise in for the employees this year.
Right.
I was hoping that maybe we could give them a little extra for Christmas. Y'all don't see that
But we're
happening.
leaving the bonus in on return for the $100.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're leaving
same
that
as
in,
the
but right
forward.
now.
They just get $100.
Well, you've got to work with the money that
I
you
have,
have. You know,
I used to get 50.
cause you,
I got 50.
Yeah, back in the day, I got a kid back in the day.
I'll still have to work on it to try to get the 9,500 that were, and the water sewer, did y'all have any questions on it?
I do. So, with the salaries, in 2019, our audited was 44,572, and now we're proposing 62,400. Is that where you moved Allen, or?
Which one are you, oh, excuse me.
As line 110 on page 8.
Yeah.
That's the water plant operator. That's what we've advertised for.
Okay.
Allen's is back in, we got Allen's back into the highway department, and the salary of the water plant operator, that's just the one person for the water plant.
So you proposed the money already, but we don't have
Yeah,
one.
water
Yeah.
No, we're having to use somebody else on, I'm sure we're having to
Yeah, I
pay
know we got
somebody.
one, but
Yeah.
I'm saying we don't have one for a full-time here. We've got somebody working for us, but
We still don't have full-time one here yet?
no.
And then I also see under health insurance, we go from 4,000 to almost 10,000, line 142.
Yes, the insurance went up,
Insurance doubled.
no, it, just trying to think off the top of my head, how much.
Is this where we had an employee in a partial year? Because, you know, we paid out $3,000 or so, $300-400. And, you know, what we predict with the salary of the employee that we potentially put in that position. I think that's where you go with it, isn't it?
Yes, I put them in there like they were here. If we don't get that water plant operator, that's
Okay.
money that we've saved. We need the water plant operator, but if we don't have him July 1st, then that figure's gonna show less in audit time. But the insurance, if you look on, are you still on page 8 there, Eric?
Yes.
Okay, the insurance is $9,900.
Right.
Last year, it was $9,100.
That was the estimated.
Well, last year's was accurate because, I mean, that one's estimated so far, but it's pretty close because at July 1st, I have what the insurance is gonna be for the whole year. I actually have the increase by July 1st. So their insurance, it should come up to the 91. Oh, I see what, you're looking at the audit?
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
I was looking
The
at
audit
what
was
actual
so,
costs we've had, that's kind of what I'm going by.
right, because we didn't have the regular operator, just like Tina. We didn't have to pay insurance on her. She didn't need insurance, she said. That's why we could pay her higher wages.
Absolutely.
But
I get
if you
it.
look at the salary, see, it was only 44,000
Right.
too. And then part of that, we didn't have to pay insurance. That's why it's so low on the audit for 2019. But
Okay.
2020, it will be down also on this department because we didn't have a water plant operator the whole year.
And then I just saw like on line 200, the contractual services, that what are audited was 1663, but then we're proposing 4,000, but then last year's estimated was 12,000. It's just a big difference. I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out what the big difference is, why we're having the big differences.
Well, the big difference is I'm trying to curb it back, and the actuals for, I looked at the actuals for this year. This is through like June the 1st. They had only spent, contract service, they had only spent 2,260, they paid, right at $7,000.
Is what's been spent this year?
Yeah, and I was looking at what was actually spent this year.
Is that pumping the stations, or what all does that entail?
Well, it's different things. 4,000 of it is, where they pay the sewer department, the sanitation department, where we charge less, like $11 for customers here.
Oh, okay. I
And we're
see.
paying,
Okay.
and we have to subside it, we have to pay, the general fund water, sewer, and the general fund has to pay the sanitation. When we get to that, I've got some figures on it too. But the contract labor is things like, at the water plant, when Boggs has to come in and do something with the, computers, when something goes wrong, we pay them through contract labor.
And then I noticed for our power, we're estimating another 3,000 for power.
And that was because with the water plant down, it was low previously.
Okay. Oh, okay, I see.
The water plant was down, they didn't have as much electricity.
And then going to page 9, the salaries, I saw where it went up. It's at 57,800, and I still, I go by the audit, it was almost 23,000. Is that where,
Okay,
is that where you moved the person from the one?
yeah, Elliot went into water, 'cause that's what the auditor wanted, the equal amount. He was put into, water sewer, where last year I only had one person there, 52,314, that department, I only had one person. And this year we'll have 2 people.
And so that's why the health insurance went up also?
Right.
I got you. Then I saw where we had engineering, the audited, we paid $708, and then we're budgeting, we're proposing 7,000.
Yeah, this year we had a lot more. But I look at the audit part, but then I have to look at what actuals was for this year.
For 2020, for 1920?
The one we're finishing up, 2020. Those were estimated, and then I look at what we actually had on
Okay.
the, let's see, on that one, we actually had,
Was that in this packet? I just missed it?
we had 7,000, oh, not this.
Okay.
This is just, what I go through
Okay.
to pull the figures off of. And the actual on it is $7,050 this year that we had to pay out for engineer, and we're still going on with the project and the smoke test and all this year.
Right.
So hopefully that will go down this year.
It's also the grants, is that paid, the engineer paid out of that grant money? Or she paid out our money?
The project stuff, and there's a number to it, is paid through the grant. Okay, I pay them when the money comes in from USDA, I pay the engineers and whoever's doing the contractor. But if he does other stuff for us, if, like on the railroad station of Railroad Street, to see, they had to put together all those that Dave Wilson put together, and the smoke test, anything he does outside that contract that we're
Yeah.
working on,
Now, I figured
they
that.
charge us extra.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that with the grant money that we spend, the engineers paid out of that.
Yes,
Okay.
on the project they're working on, it comes
Right.
out of the grant money.
Right, okay. And clothing and uniforms down, what's the difference on that? Item 326.
Well, their insurance went up on, which one are you on now?
On,
Page
Okay.
9.
page 9, 326.
Where she's got 2 employees now.
Yeah, I have 2 employees instead of 1 on,
Okay,
in that department.
all right.
Are we planning on, I know with our codes enforcer, it needs to be 6 months or so, or?
He set up to 5, he told me yesterday, that he would probably be done in 3 months.
Are we gonna continue having somebody in that position?
Yes.
Okay. So it's in the budget?
See, if you want to, he asked if we were gonna continue having someone and you're gonna use the officers you have, is that correct?
That'd be whatever the board chooses to do, we can go that route, or we can, whatever the board, mayor, whatever the city chooses to do, we can work with what we have, or we can, that's whatever the funds allow, I guess.
Or could we get another
The chief-
part-time?
The chief and the assistant chief, they both think that
Can't hear
they
you, Mayor.
can
We can hear
handle.
you back here.
I'm sorry, the chief and the assistant chief both think that it can be handled through just our regular police officers.
What about, since I'm on the police department, instead of waiting until we got to buy a car or purchase a car, can we start putting a little bit of money each year in our budget, just to put in a fund for a car? Are we allowed to do that?
Yes.
You know, $10,000, $15,000 to, so as they get so many miles on them, we need to
Be able to,
be able to retire it, sell it,
Yeah.
and get a new one.
Yes,
have a
that's
little-
what we need to start doing.
Yeah,
As, I've said that all along with the CPAs, we need to start setting the McBennville, Tennessee. That's what they do. They can buy new trucks, they can buy new fire crews, they have a fire department. They set aside money constantly, and then when it's time, they have the money to cash to pay it out.
and is there any way that we can ever get any money for a city manager? Not saying anything about anybody, if something were to happen to the mayor, we'd be in a pickle. We'd be in a serious pickle. I just didn't know if that was something that we could put some money in there for and start working on. I've noticed when I crunch the numbers, and I know this year's gonna be a different year, but I've noticed when I take the ending available funds and the beginning available funds, and I do for the audited 2019, that we are to the good $222,581. That's what, if I figured it right.
On the first page.
Yes, sir, first page, sorry. So we had money left up. If that's telling me if I'm reading it right, am I?
You're right.
Okay, and then so for 19 and 20, our budget, I had it from last year. If I read it right, our audited for 2018, we had an excess amount of $356,297. That's for the general fund revenue for the 2019, or I'm sorry, 2018 audited.
We've got the numbers,
Yeah.
we've got $1.756 million.
Well, I know, but we have to keep everything, but they want it to be balanced, so I'm just trying to.
Right.
And then I noticed, and then I had the year before, the audited 2017, numbers, and we had an excess amount of $321,000. So we've got, I mean, it seems like we have excess money every year, and I know we have to put some fluff in there in case something happens. But I just was wondering if we could
Guess what?
allow some money for a city manager or start the search and just like I said, I just think it's better to have somebody, if something were to happen, it's nice to have somebody else that knows what's kind of going on.
I guess we could vote on it.
Well, we can do that now.
Oh, no.
Is that something, I mean, if it's, I'm just curious.
Are you saying going forward or pulling it out of what we already have there? Like the money we've got in the bank, okay?
Well, if they want us to keep a balanced budget, I mean, if we could see if we could put it in the budget, or if we need to pull
Right.
some out of existing, but
Well, definitely this year at this point.
what's that?
I said, definitely, we don't have it at this point in this year's budget,
You talk about, so you talk about the 2021 budget?
2021 budget, yeah.
So we could not do it in that one?
No, we couldn't budget it in here. You're probably looking at, I don't know, $75,000 if you get a full-time,
Right.
city manager.
Well, when I asked you that question the other night about our money gone down any, is it still staying the same, did it went up? And you actually said it went up.
Our cash money, yeah. It's where, just like Eric said,
I'm confused.
well, it's like Eric said, where we didn't spend all the money on those years, then it goes into the bank account. The bank account grows and grows, because we didn't have to spend all the money that we budgeted that year.
Basically, what you're saying, you can't do it this year right now because we don't have an excess money. in
Yeah,
capital.
that's
But
just
if
in
you-
this budget here.
But if I look at these
Yeah.
budgets, you wouldn't think we had it there either,
But we
but at
have
the end of by the end of the year, we actually had it.
Cause
We don't see the actual.
But I just didn't know if we could, if there's some way to tighten up the numbers on our expenditures and maybe get it, or we add a little bit more money into our revenue, like with the driving school fees. We know that's probably at least 30,000 low. And I'd say the tickets is probably a little low, but I know we need it, I know they want us to make it tight, because we don't know what's gonna happen this year.
Right now, we're already basically 9,500 behind.
Well, that's what
But
these
for-
numbers say.
Right.
We won't know till
So,
a year later.
right.
That was just my point, I just wondered if that's something.
I
we could try to
understand what
fit in
you're
there.
saying.
I'd like to see something.
It's just guesswork.
Oh, I know.
That, doing the
Especially-
budget, especially, this year
Especially
worse
now.
than any.
With the cameras gone and with the coronavirus. But with the cameras, I mean, you said we were gonna lose 100,000, and we were gonna pick up 30,000 with the driving school, and I'd say we'd probably pick up another 20,000 with just the court fines. That puts us at 50. And it's like I said, last year, we had an excess of over 200,000. The previous 2 years, we had an excess of 300,000. I'm sure we're gonna have excess. It'd be tight. Are we allowed to take money out of our general fund to do something like that?
You can take
Out of
out,
the bank, I mean, or is that a no-no?
well, it's good.
It's a gray area.
Is
Because
what?
when you do the budget, you have things in there that at the end of the year, the auditor transfers out, where we have to count it as an expense, especially in water sewer. In water sewer, we have to count principal payment as an expense. At the end of the year, all those principal payments is pulled back out of expense. When the audit's done, it doesn't show in expenses because it goes to principal, which is a asset. It's on the asset and liability in your financial statements, not on your income statement.
So it's not like we've got $200,000 left over, it looks that way on paper.
Right.
Well,
We do, but
yeah, we have it, yes, that's why we have that amount of money. That's why the accounts have went from $500,000 in the bank to $1 million in the
Right.
bank. Because that money wasn't really expenses at the end of the year.
we didn't
But
use
on the
that much.
budget, the state makes us put those principles because it's money that has to be paid out.
Is that
Even
over here?
though
Is
it's
that
not
like-
an expense.
Is that what we're looking at on page 10? Line 601 and 602, I mean, it's like the USDA, the 47,500.
Every one of those that says principal on them are not expenses. At
They
the
are.
end of the year, that's going to show that much more to the good and to the black.
So, but do we actually give money to that?
We actually pay it, yes,
Okay.
but
So it comes out of our revenue,
yeah, but
but then it's
on
considered
your
an asset.
business, okay, on your business, when you look at your financials, you have an asset and liability sheets, right? And then you have the income statement that makes up your financials. Those decreases that was paid comes off of what how much you owe on that loan.
Okay.
So if you put money in there right now for a business, for a city manager, they're saying we spent that much money. Is that right or not?
Yeah, they would say we spent that much money if we put it on
If
the
you budget for it, they
budget.
say you spent it.
I mean, on the budget wise, they will say, we have to reduce that from the revenue that came in. And then that's gonna show you in the red. Because we don't have that money all in this year to put it. Okay, you want to look at the sanitation fund? Unless you have something else on that one.
What page is it on?
11.
Huh?
11.
And I don't have it, on the one, I don't have it actually done for this year, because I wanted to talk with you all. With the, for the 2021 proposed, if we leave it at $11, we're gonna be short around $300 at the end of the year in the red. But then the next year, we got another 50 cents going on. I feel like you all will make the decision. If you add 50 cents this year, it's gonna help next year when another 50 cents is added on, instead of waiting next year and do $1. If you do 50 cents, that's $6 on somebody, $6 a year on their garbage for the year. 50-cent increase.
Okay, 50-cent increase. Was there an increase in property taxes or water or anything like that?
No, we haven't put anything down, and you all will probably want to be looking at the property taxes for next year. We just have to look and see what this year ends on.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Sharon.
Is it on the property taxes? We'll have to watch closely what goes on this year. If we get enough money in to being able to, because the expenses this year has really, I've cut it as far as I possibly think I can on these departments. It's gonna be short on them, but hopefully these revenue incomes are less than it's gonna come in. And when they do, we can start loosening up. Like I said, we can do amendments all year long. But on the sanitation fund, I feel like that you should do a 50-cent increase. Cost someone $6 for the whole year increase.
What's that line item 230 on page 10? The difference in the money there, it's double. What is that for, Sharon?
Okay, on page 10, which
Yeah.
number?
230?
Publications. That's for the ads that we have to run in the paper all the time. We run in the paper for the water sewer, like I mean, the water plant cost us $1,030 to run that in the paper, on the internet,
Okay.
to try to get them in. And then the publications throughout the year that when we have to, especially in the water sewer, things that we have to put in the paper or
Okay.
run and on the internet and whatever.
Okay.
But that's what that is the publications that we have to put out.
So back to make sure I understand this. On page 10, you said everything that shows principal, well, I mean, we pretty much, we pay everything that's down through there, right?
Yes.
The
yes.
principal and interest
Yes,
on all those.
Cause you got the principal payment, you got interest payment.
But the principal goes back to our assets.
I mean, it
Because
goes,
that-
well, it
that-
goes against your liabilities.
Right,
It reduces your liability.
right, but, yeah, okay, yeah.
And that's why we come up showing better at the end of the year than we do on the budget. That's, we show a profit, a more profit because of those principal payments. And I watch that all year to see that
So what would I do, add all that up, and then I would back it out of this 222,580 that I got here on the audited 2019? I just want to know if we ever have money, so I just add all those payments up.
okay, on the, maybe this will help. Okay, on water sewer, look at your audit, okay?
Which page?
On that same page you're
Okay.
on, see where all the blanks are?
Uh-huh.
Okay, they was taken out by the auditor.
Oh.
If you noticed, all the principals are blank from the audit to 2019.
So he puts that money, that kind of goes back, and that shows
It
you.
goes to pay off the principal, I mean, the loans, reduces your
It pays down your
liabilities.
yeah.
And it adds profit to your, profit income statement.
Okay, I got you. Wish I'd paid attention more in accounting.
I missed school that day.
Was probably asleep.
And we've actually got 49,700 for the Veterans Memorial.
Oh, yes, that's the total that's been put in.
So we've got more than that.
How would I know what that number was in the audited? There should have been a number there at some point that we paid. And never mind, don't, I'll figure it out eventually.
Well, what do you all think about the 50 cents? I know you'll have to vote on it, but, in the regular meeting, but, so I can go on and put it in the budget if you all think you wanna do that.
I think it'd be better to do a little bit at a time than hit everybody all at once.
So add a 50 cent on this
I
year.
agree. It's still 1150 is not bad.
Hmm.
I said it's still 1150
It's
is not bad.
reasonable. It's
Now
reasonable.
11.50 is what it'd be a month.
I understand, instead of hitting everybody at once, you know, if we have to have an increase on that, but hey, some people don't have 50 cents extra. That's my concern.
questions?
Well, I just have one. So some of these numbers aren't exactly right? Is that
I
correct?
know, I will be changing some of
Okay,
them.
okay, all right. The reason why I asked is this is the first reading, right, of the budget?
This is workshop.
No, this
So
is
it's not
just
the
a
first,
workshop.
this is the workshop.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Get your automobiles and.
How many readings do we have on the budget?
Two.
Two.
And by the way, while we're talking about that, can y'all come to a special call meeting if everything works out?
I can't hear you, Mayor. Talk with the microphone.
Hey!
Hey, how you go?
Who did that?
Now I heard you.
You got it, man.
Police. Oh,
Can y'all come to a special call meeting on Thursday at 9 a.m.? If everything works out, special call meeting?
This week?
Yes.
I'll have to check my calendar first.
I don't know, I think I
Yeah,
got
I'll
it.
have to-
I cannot,
Not
Oh,
this
you
week,
can't
next
this
week,
week.
yeah,
no,
not that quickly.
not this week.
I'm sorry,
Next
next week on Thursday.
In the
No.
next week.
I'm having cataract surgery next Thursday.
I can try next Thursday.
You can try next
I can
Thursday.
try.
What it is,
Okay.
the only thing we need to do the amended budget, budget amendments that we usually do in May or in the April and May, but since we haven't had any meetings, when did you all have to vote on that? So I can go on and get them, it has to be done before the end of July 1st. Do the amend the budget.
Eric, do you think you can?
What's it, next Thursday at 9?
Yes.
I can probably be here.
Okay, and, Ray, you think you can be here, and, Richard, you say you having surgery?
Yeah, I'm having cataract surgery next Thursday.
Okay, and you think maybe you can try to make it?
I'm 75% sure. that-
We can't do it on Wednesday before.
That's
This
we-
is nature of the business.
And you're gonna check her, let's see if you can. Okay, okay, thank you. Well, as soon as you, find out, would you please let me know?
Next Thursday, right?
Yes, at 9. Okay, if you don't have any other questions, we can adjourn.
Mayor,
No, wait a minute, I'm not having till the 29th, my surgery, I think. I'll have to look at the see when I get home.
okay.
I believe it's the
This
29th
about
of May.
the election, do you know anything about, we have to vote on it or what?
No, you would have to vote on it. Yeah, you have to vote on what you wanna do for the election.
I think Paul Frost said it had to be a simple majority,